Today we will learn about solubility rules. Our question of the day is, what are some substances you know that dissolve in water? What are some substances you know that don't dissolve in water? Now let's think about solubility. Just because a substance has ionic bonds or it is a polar molecule does not mean it is guaranteed to dissolve in water. Soluble substances will dissolve. However, insoluble substances will not dissolve. The first rule is that group 1 ions, as well as NH4 plus, NO3 minus, C2H3O2 minus, HCO3 minus, and ClO3 minus 1, will all dissolve with no exceptions. That means they will dissolve in water no matter what they are bonded to. Halides and sulfate are soluble with exceptions. Halides do not dissolve when bonded to silver, mercury, or lead plus 2, and sulfates do not dissolve when bonded to silver, lead, mercury, calcium, strontium, or barium plus 2. Here are some more examples. Whatever is on the left will not dissolve unless bonded to whatever's on the right. Now pause the video and try the show what you know questions. When you are done, you may resume the video to check your answers. Since NH4 plus 1 is always soluble, that means NH4Cl is soluble. AgCl is insoluble because the chloride is a halogen which is bonded to silver. Now, sodium chlorate will also be soluble because group 1 is always soluble. Calcium bromide is soluble for the same reason. Magnesium sulfide is insoluble because magnesium is not one of the exceptions for sulfide. Lastly is aluminum chloride, which is soluble because chlorine is always soluble. Since calcium is not one of the exceptions for phosphate, then calcium phosphate is insoluble. Magnesium sulfate is soluble because SO4 minus 2 tends to be soluble. Now, copper nitrate is soluble because of the nitrate, and strontium chromate is insoluble because it's not bonded to magnesium or calcium. Then there's sodium carbonate, which is soluble because of group 1 sodium. And last on this page is 12, lead sulfate, which is insoluble because it's not one of the exceptions to sulfate. Now let's finish these. Sodium nitrate is soluble because of sodium. Magnesium hydroxide is insoluble because hydroxide is not bonded to calcium, strontium, or barium plus 2. For number 15, magnesium chromate is soluble because it is an exception to the chromate rule. Calcium sulfate is insoluble because the calcium is bonded to the sulfate and is not one of the exceptions to the rule. Iodide is a halide, but since it is bonded to lead, it will be insoluble. And lastly, barium hydroxide is soluble because it is an exception to the barium rule.